Welcome back, Mrs. Johnston, and it is time for knowledge and social studies. We are still working on Unit 10, Colonial Towns and Townspeople, and we are on Lesson 8, called The Blacksmith. Before we begin our read aloud today, let's review what we have already learned. In the previous read aloud, we learned the three materials used to make houses in colonial America. Can you tell me the three items used? Did you remember bricks, stone, and wood? So, which tradesperson was responsible for using each of those items, and what were they called? Did you remember that the bricklayer was responsible for using bricks? The mason was responsible for using stones, and the carpenter was responsible for using wood. Everyone had a special job to do. There was one person who made it possible for many of these people to do their jobs. What the tradespeople need to do their jobs is tools. The blacksmith made iron into tools and was therefore very important because he helped everyone else do their jobs. You will learn about the blacksmith in our next read aloud. What is the name of the tradesperson who makes tools out of iron? Did you respond blacksmith? Why is the blacksmith important? The blacksmith is important because he makes the tools for everyone else to do their jobs. Listen carefully to find out about the blacksmith and his trade. This picture is a picture of a blacksmith shop and metal objects. Blacksmiths were some of the most important tradespeople in town because they made all the tools people needed to do their jobs. They made chisels for masons and hammers and nails for carpenters and cobblers. They made household items like kettles, cooking pots, candle holders, and other utensils. They also made horseshoes, or the curved pieces of iron nailed to the bottom of horses' hooves to protect them, hinges, knives, and swords, locks and keys, and much more. You'd be surprised at the number of things people used in everyday life that came out of the blacksmith shop. To do his work, a blacksmith needed 5 basic things. He needed some metal to work with, something to heat the metal in, something to move the hot metal from one place to another, something to put it on, and something to hit it with. Metal is a hard, shiny material, such as gold or iron, that conducts heat and can be melted and reshaped into useful objects. Blacksmiths in early America worked mostly with iron. Iron is a very strong metal, but when it is heated in a fire, it becomes soft and pliable. That means it can be shaped into whatever shape the blacksmith wants. To heat the iron, a blacksmith used a special oven or fireplace called a forge. Most forges were simply open fire pits, like the one in the first picture, so that the blacksmith could work closely and easily with the metal he put in the fire. The most important thing was that the fire burned hot, so hot that it could melt metal. Once his forge was hot enough, the blacksmith would put a piece of iron in it. Because the forge was so hot, he had to use tongs. Tongs have 2 long metal arms connected by a hinge. By squeezing the 2 arms together, you can grab things without using your own hands. You may have tongs in your kitchen to pick up food. You can see the blacksmith using tongs in this picture. Tongs were an essential or necessary tool for the blacksmith, almost like a second pair of hands for him. They were both necessary and important. He couldn't do his job without them. The blacksmith would leave the iron in the forge until it was red hot, meaning that it actually got so hot that it turned bright red in the fire. Then he pulled it out, using his tongs again to keep from burning his hands. After quickly removing the red hot piece of iron from the fire, he placed it on the anvil and started to bang away at it with his hammer. In this picture, you can see the anvil, the big block of metal on which the blacksmith shaped the iron. The blacksmith had to work quickly because the metal was only soft and pliable when it was red hot. Once the iron cooled, it would harden. As long as the blacksmith kept the metal hot, he could shape it however he liked. He could make the metal longer or shorter, thicker or thinner. He could bend it and mold it into special shapes. In this picture, you can see how the blacksmith is shaping a horseshoe. When he was happy with the size and shape of whatever he was making, the blacksmith would let the iron cool off, sometimes by plunging it into a bucket of cold water, and it would harden. What would make the iron harden faster, leaving it out in the air or plunging it into cold water? Did you say plunging it into cold water? Because a blacksmith lifted hammers and heavy iron pieces all day long, he was usually one of the strongest, toughest men in town. A blacksmith probably had more than his share of scars and burns from the hot metal he handled every day. Blacksmiths were often thought of as clever and resourceful people, meaning they were able to figure out how to fix things and make things work. If a person needed a special tool for a special job, chances were the local blacksmith could figure it out and make whatever was needed. Is anyone wondering where the name blacksmith came from? Well, the word smith comes from the word smite, which is another word for hit, and iron is black. So a blacksmith is a person who smites or hits black metal for a living. Today, machines do the work of blacksmiths, melting iron in large pots and pouring the hot metal into molds or shapes. For example, there is a mold for horseshoes. The good thing about using a mold is that no one gets burned and all the horseshoes come out the same. But we still appreciate the handmade ironwork of the blacksmiths from years ago. No town in early America was without a blacksmith. He was the essential tradesperson in every town. What kind of metal do blacksmiths work with? Blacksmiths work with iron. Metal is hard. How is a blacksmith able to bend iron into different shapes? He heats it in a forge first until it is very hot and soft. What are the different steps that a blacksmith used to make a horseshoe? We will go through each step together. First, start out by telling me about the forge. He lit a fire in the forge and heated up a piece of metal. Next, tell me what the blacksmith did with the tongs, the anvil, and the hammer. He picked up hot metal with tongs, set it on an anvil, and banged it with the hammer. Last, how did he cool the hot iron quickly so that it would harden? He plunged it into a bucket of cold water. Why was a blacksmith so important to the people in a colonial town? He made the tools for everyone else. Mrs. Johnston hopes that you enjoyed learning about the blacksmith today.